Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this panel discussion on artificial intelligence and new ethical challenges for businesses. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this very exciting event where we will delve into key issues facing organizations as they develop, implement, and adopt artificial intelligence. My name is Dr. Preetika Joshi, and I'm an assistant professor in the accounting area at the Desautels Faculty of Management. I will be moderating the panel discussion today. I would like to start today's event by acknowledging that McGill University is located on land which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst Indigenous people, including the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe nations. McGill honors, recognizes, and respects these nations as the traditional stewards of the lands and waters on which we meet today. I would now like to invite our Dean, Dr. Yolande Chen, and request her to share a few words with us.
Thank you, Professor Joshi. What a wonderful opportunity it is for us to get together this evening in advance of tomorrow's highly anticipated inaugural accounting ethics case competition hosted by the Laidley Centre for Business Ethics. We are very, very pleased to be bringing together students and industry professionals for what will be a very important multidisciplinary and multi-institutional experiential learning opportunity. No matter which team wins in the end tomorrow, this competition presents all of our students with the chance to think deeply about ethical challenges, to respond creatively, yet with integrity, to receive expert guidance, and to gain new knowledge and experiences to apply to future real-life challenges. At Desautels, we aim to deliver a future-oriented business education. And in an age of continuous disruption, non-stop change, decision-making is very difficult, for we are continuously faced with new choices, hard, unprecedented choices at times. And this is where ethics plays a major role. When you are backed into a corner, are you going to do what's expedient? Or will you do what is fundamentally right? And if you choose the latter, how will you survive? We've all seen the headlines when something goes terribly wrong in the business world, and news stories have no shortage of examples of what I would refer to as unethical AI. AI technology advancements accelerate, and AI disrupts. I don't know of an industry it hasn't disrupted. I study personally digital innovation. In fact, I hate to share the date, but over 30 years ago, I was studying AI. Let's say that as a scholar who's familiar with this, who studies technology and change, I know that AI is an exemplary innovation and technology that births opportunities, but also challenges. And while we want our grads to know all of the opportunities, we have to equip them with the awareness of the ethical implications of their choices and the use of this technology. I want to draw attention to one of our professors, Professor Matissa Hollister. I know Matissa is well known by many of you. She studies the ethical challenges of using AI in HR, in human resource processes. There are questions like, to what extent do we let AI shape who gets hired or fired? To a small degree, a large degree, totally? Who gets the raise? How do we ensure that while leveraging AI technologies, we equally foster ethical, humane, caring, empathic management approaches. Questions like these underscore the need to educate you as leaders who will be technologically savvy, but at the same time, you know the importance of integrity and courage. I know that you will face ethical dilemmas. It's not a probability. You will face ethical challenges in the course of your careers. And the role of the Laidley Centre for Business Ethics is to equip you to have foundations, to have frameworks, to help you to logically and not just emotionally address a range of challenging situations and issues. I know that this is creating a foundation for your future. So I want to thank and extend my deep gratitude to those in the organizing committee for this event. They have made this inaugural event very high quality, and I hope it will be unforgettable for you, our participants, our advisors, our judges. And in particular, I'd like to thank Professor Joshi, Professor Dongyung Lee, Elena Obukova, and Youngo Ro. Oh, there's Dongyung. Thank you. I want to also thank Director Lindsay Holmgren, who's having a bit of a challenge today, health-wise, but would otherwise be here, and Associate Director Nikita Boston-Fisher, both at the Laidley Centre for Business Ethics. A big thank you to our panelists, to our judges and our advisors. We look forward to your counsel. We thank you for your perspectives and your commitment to shaping ethical future business leaders. It takes all of us to make this happen. And we are, of course, deeply grateful for the support of our alumnus, David Laidley, who's hidden in the back. David, can you please raise your hand? No, please raise your hand. Who, through his generous giving, has helped set the stage. I think, David, you should know that because of you, we can all make, even if it's just marginally more, ethical decisions, but we will. And we thank you. So with no further ado, I just want to say thank you for the support of all of you in this room and all those who've taken the time to participate. I know you're working with me to be at the forefront of business education and research. And I know that you're helping me to create a world in which, and a business community in which we want to live and play a part. So good luck to our contestants, bon chance. And with no further ado, I'll turn the floor over to Associate Director Nikita Boston-Fisher. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dean Chan. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nikita Boston-Fisher, and I'm the Associate Director of the Laidley Centre for Business Ethics. I typically enjoy being in the background, but Dr. Lindsay Holmgren, our Acting Director, chose this week of all weeks to come down with COVID. Those of you who know Lindsay know that she's extremely fashionable and stylish. Everything about Lindsay is on trend. Therefore, it is hard to believe that she would wait until COVID is kind of on its way out to pick up the trend. So, of all times to break script, this is it. And so here I am. She set me up. 3 days into her first bout of COVID and still audibly symptomatic on my call with her today, she knew it would be completely unethical to be here and potentially infect others. So I bring these remarks to you on her behalf. In all seriousness, what we are discussing tonight is extremely important to Lindsay. Indeed, she is part of a McGill working group that is addressing these very concerns from an institutional perspective. She knows that the contributions of this excellent panel are going to be crucial to her thinking, as well as to all of our thinking that are gathered here today. The Laidley Centre for Business Ethics is crucial for enabling us to have these kinds of challenging dialogues that encourage us to think about the best ways forward for business, education, and human welfare more broadly in the context of artificial intelligence. She thanks you all very much for being here and demonstrating your commitment to considering the ethical implications of AI. We are excited to host our inaugural accounting ethics case competition under the theme Artificial Intelligence, New Ethical Challenges for Businesses, and would like to extend our thanks to Professors Dong-Young Lee and Preetika Joshi for helping us make this case competition a reality. We've met weekly for months and are so excited that the big day is finally here. We chose to keep this first competition close to home and involve only McGill students, but in future years, we plan to open it to institutions across North America. To some extent, this mirrors what ethical comportment ought to be. Start at home, start with oneself, and move out into the world from there. Of note is that in this, our special inaugural year, we are awarding an honorarium to all participating teams. We would also like to thank our panelists and judges who are a mix of professors and industry professionals. In particular, we are very grateful to have some judges from Deloitte and KPMG. We are also very grateful to our donor David Laidley, Dean Chen, Wesley McCoy and his team, the marketing and communications team, the administrative staff, Stuart McCombie and his team, the caterers, and everyone who has made this evening and tomorrow possible. Thank you, and I will now pass the microphone back to Preetika Joshi to begin the panel.
Thank you, Nikita. As has been mentioned, we are super excited to have our inaugural accounting ethics case competition tomorrow. And to all of the students, there's several of them in the room today, who are competing tomorrow, all the very best. And a reminder that we will be drawing the order of presentation for tomorrow's event after the networking reception. So do hang out for that. Do not leave after the drinks and food, because that's the main point for tomorrow. Now, without further ado, I am pleased to introduce our esteemed panelists. Joining us on the panel today are Manon Boisclair, Canadian-American entrepreneur and founder of InnovID B2, a boutique firm that specializes in impact consulting in life sciences and sustainability. We also have Abhishek Gupta, Senior Responsible AI Leader and Expert, Boston Consulting Group. Abhishek is also the co-founder of Montreal AI Ethics Institute. Dr. Jodie Lobana, Governance of Artificial Intelligence Scholar, McMaster University. Jodie is a distinguished director, educator, and author of the soon-to-be-released Holistic Governance of Artificial Intelligence book. Rahul Bharadwaj, Information Security Executive with experience in the areas of information security, artificial intelligence, and other emerging technologies. He's also Senior Product Manager Technology at Amazon Web Services. Finally, we have Tracey Chen, a fraud and risk professional in the financial service and e-commerce space, and she is Senior Manager Financial Crime Advisory at KPMG LLP. We are thrilled to have such a distinguished group of experts join us today. As we all know, artificial intelligence is disrupting businesses and processes across industries. What do you see as the most impactful application of AI for businesses and our industries currently and in the near future? Rahul, do you want to start with your thoughts?
Sure. Thank you, Preetika, for the introductions, but I think the microphones are not working. They are, okay. Well, firstly, Preetika, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for putting this panelists together to discuss this important topic of AI and ethics. So in my line of work, the primary focus and things that I've seen from an AI perspective are products and services that support cybersecurity threats, how to mitigate them, and basically, they further streamlined into other components of data security, making sure that people within the organization have got the right access to the data components. They lead a little bit into physical security, ensuring that people have access to the premises are authorized to do so. And the way this happens is that there are these AI tools and models all over the place, and they're listening to firewalls, they're listening to your devices, they're listening to your desktops, your mobile phones, and continuously evaluating the state of health from an AI perspective. I've also seen application of AI in other niche areas such as mental health and how do you deal with emotional well-being. And finally, I've also seen implications of AI in the area of third-party risk management. So for example, you want to do business with an entity which is in a conflict area like the Republic of Congo. So how do you go about evaluating that entity? What are some of the attributes that you will take a look at? So the AI helps in this regard. It evaluates the context, it evaluates the country of origin, and basically presents a state of health for the vendor or the entity you want to be able to do business with.
Thank you, Rahul. Tracey, if we can get some of your thoughts.
Absolutely. I worked for a major Canadian retailer before, so I want to talk about how AI has been used in the commerce space. Actually, Amazon has been at the forefront of adopting AI, obviously. They have these amazing, really cool robotic arms that can pick up huge boxes. But not just that, and even items that's irregular shaped using sensors and suction cups. So that really reduces the manual work the warehouse staff has to do. Amazon also has this amazing Amazon Go store. If you don't know, you can just go walk in, shop as normal, and just walk out because they can track what you pick up, put down, and actually take out with you. And you don't have to go through any checkout, either cashier or self-checkout. Another thing I definitely noticed is using AI to create personalized customer experience. So all the chatbots you notice on e-commerce or just normal websites, and the loyalty rewards and offers that you receive that's personalized to you based on your past purchase behaviors.
And I would be remiss if I did not mention we have something similar to the Amazon Go Shop downstairs in our store downstairs. It's a retail lab. It's not exactly, but it's similar. It's like a experiment that they're running, and they do similar type of AI use of that technology. Manon?
Thank you. I come with a different type of background. I'm a clinician by training, and I did my MBA, so I've been in the pharma industry for a long time, but I also have been in the hospital setting working at the Montreal Heart Institute. And where does AI bring its value and its power? I think medicine has, in general, life science, pharma companies tend to be very, very traditional because we sign a oath, do no harm where you're in the field. You're there to improve patients' access to medication, to getting cure, and to getting better. With the pandemic, we were stuck at home. There's a lot of things that we could not do, and I think this is where medicine was a little bit shaken because we had to do things, and a lot of startups and a lot of different opportunities were ignited by AI and by the situation. So for us in the space, in pharma, in the healthcare sector, it really changes two things. Technology that has embedded AI to help the healthcare professionals, surgeons, physicians, pharmacists to perform better. So you have robots, even when you go to your pharmacy or shoppers, you really see that the medication is prepared for you by a robot. So all of that to make sure that the delivery of care is faster. But think about being at home and having a disease and be able to get on a call with a physician, get your camera in front of you because you have a rash, and be able to get an AI match to your condition after your questionnaire, have a prescription, and being able to go to the pharmacy and get treated and get followed. This is something that was not possible 2 to 3 years ago. Now it's booming. So AI in that space is changing two things, helping technology being better, but also changing the course of action when it comes to implementation and it comes to processes. So it goes a long way. From a pharma standpoint, everything that we do tends to take 10 years to 15 years to come to market. We're squishing this in about 5 years to 8 years now. That means saving billions of dollars. It means costing less for the physician, costing less for the patients, and also on our taxes. So we want to make sure that patients have access to medication as quickly as possible. I'm also an investor and an angel investor. So for those of you who's doing investing, AI is a challenge, and we'll get a little bit deeper in a few seconds. But I want you to remember that you're here to think about ethics. You're here to think about the blend of ethics and business. So I would throw one more thing on this. You're the youngest generation amongst us. Your skill sets, your transferable knowledge, but also your ethics and governance are going to be sought by companies and by boards. I would say try to get on those certification, to get certified as quickly as possible, to really know what ethics is. Go deeper in your knowledge, be curious, but also get the skill sets for you to be of high value and to bring your knowledge to other groups that will depend on you and depend on your skill sets.
Thank you, Manon. That was very insightful. Abhishek?
Yeah. So I think when we think about what AI can offer to businesses, what AI can bring, I think we've gotten a few great examples from retail, from healthcare, from cybersecurity. What's caught my attention of late, and I've been working for a while in the field of machine learning, I think we are in an era right now of fast increasing capabilities. I would be remiss if I did not mention, or I would rather say, I think I'd be surprised if people here did not know about some of the recent generative AI systems that have been, capturing the entire news cycle, as it were. We're talking about systems like ChatGPT. We're talking about systems like DALL-E, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Claude, Bard. I think we're soon going to run out of names faster than we can actually build these systems. And the place where they're concretely making business impact already, and by the way, we get normalized so quickly to how fast we're able to take AI capabilities that existed in a research lab and operationalize them within a business context to actually start generating value. And we've forgotten that this actually wasn't the normal case. So even if we roll back 6, 7, 8 years ago, the life cycle of moving from a research lab, research discovery, to actually making it all the way into a product or service where people can actually benefit from it took anywhere between 2 to 3 years. We've shortened that to a few months now. So concretely, I think what generative AI systems are doing today is phenomenally democratizing how many people are actually able to use these systems. So again, if we go back 5, 6, 7 years ago, when you think about who was able to harness the power of AI systems, it was people who had technical capabilities. So you need to have a little bit of technical savvy. You also needed a few people to work together to bring that into your whatever business function where you were trying to deploy it. Now all you have to do, and I think again, I'm not going to surprise anyone here. You open up a browser window, maybe go to something like chat.open.ai, and start to interact with the system, and you can immediately generate some value. Things like overcoming blank page syndrome accelerates the workflows of people who are, let's say, generating marketing copy, right? And of course, we'll get into the ethics of all of this as well, because that's what I specialize in, as do the other panelists as well. And there are tremendous ramifications in terms of what it means for the academic ecosystem as well. But just sticking to the business ecosystem for a second, the power that this brings in terms of its democratizing capability is that anyone and everyone, no matter where you are in the organization, as an individual, you don't need a team anymore, with little to no technical skills, can significantly accelerate your workflows and start to deliver business gains. And so that's what's getting me excited today about generative AI capabilities.
And I think that's the case with a lot of people. When they hear ChatGPT, they automatically get interested. Jodie, do you want to finish up this question with some of your thoughts?
Yes, last but not the least. So you've heard my colleagues talking about various examples of AI usage. I was thinking that since I'll be speaking last on this question, that I give you kind of like a framework to think about. When you're thinking about applications that an organization can use, think about various things AI can do. I'll give you 10 to start off with, quickly. First is prediction. AI can do such as GE's predictive maintenance, or Walmart's prediction of demand. Second, image recognition. So we heard one example of a use in healthcare. In healthcare, there's also example of oncology. IBM Watson's used to detect whether a tumor is malignant or not, right? Third is natural language processing. Review of legal documents by JP Morgan, or review of insurance claims by Manulife. Fourth is something Tracey mentioned, personalization. So when you're thinking about the framework, when you think it's trying to strategize for a particular company on how to use AI, you need to think about in the framework format. And I think it's something Dean mentioned as well, that if we apply frameworks, we can kind of have a better utilization of a particular tool or technology. So personalization, Amazon's recommendation systems would fall into that. Fifth would be something called clustering. A lot of political parties look at the entire population and create subgroups of them to try to understand them. So those subgroups are through something called clustering. Another one is anomaly detection, which gets used as part of the cybersecurity and fraud. Seventh is reinforcement learning. A lot of gaming use reinforcement learning. Eighth is generative AI that Abhishek just mentioned, ChatGPTs. Ninth is AI-based decision making. If you have lots of criteria and you're trying to make a decision, AI can be really helpful with that. And last but not the least is robotics integration into AI. Your Teslas, Boston Dynamics, they're using AI quite a bit. So when you're thinking about organization, think in terms of systems, think in terms of the entire framework, and then bring in all the examples that my fellow panelists have said, and more within that framework to help your organization.
I think that was an excellent closing to that question, Jodie. Thank you for that. Now, given all of these great and insightful and impactful applications of AI, I'm going to combine two questions here. So what are the key ethical challenges that arise with these applications? And what can organizations do to address these challenges? If we could start this time with Tracey.
Yeah, sure. So one ethical challenge that comes with AI is definitely going to be about the data. AI is not magic. It doesn't spit out things randomly. It's trained on relevant data. So I'm sure the panelists can talk about other issues that comes with the data, but one thing, it may be about the intellectual property rights. So organizations really need to make sure that the data you train your AI on is obtained legally. But even secondly, even if your data is obtained legally, there are still some controversies around it. So let's use an AI that generates images. If it's trained on one artist's art that was a very specific art style and generates a very similar style art, would you call that AI plagiarizing the artist? How similar does it have to be to say so? And is it AI that plagiarizes, or is a person who requests AI to do that plagiarizing? So there are a lot of interesting cases right now out there, and still up for debate, I would say.
And that's very an interesting insight, because in the academic world, academic integrity, as we reinforce all the time, is huge. And as it is, that can be challenging sometimes in the world of Google. But now you have this generative AI, and this is kind of making this problem even worse. So understanding this issue around what would be integral in terms of using material, I think even to myself, it's not clear at this point, because in research, we talk about using data to train a machine learning model, but very rarely do we think about, would it be counted as plagiarism? So I think that's a very interesting insight, Tracey. Abhishek?
So I think it's great that you brought up the point around academic integrity, and I think rather than beating around the bush, like let's talk about that honestly. I think students are experimenting with these systems whether we want it or not. To me, it's a positive, right? I think when you look at a system like ChatGPT, what it really does is it opens up the surface to new possibilities in terms of how we actually go about assessing knowledge, skills, and abilities when it comes to the academic ecosystem. In particular, I think what we need to think about is where these systems are capable and where they're not, right? So identifying problems like hallucination, where it makes up facts as it goes along. In fact, it makes up facts in a very convincing and compelling fashion. I'll share an anecdote. I do research on what's called augmented collective intelligence, just looking at the emergent intelligence that arises when you have multiple human actors and machine actors working together in a group setting. And as I was doing some background research on it, I wanted to see what ChatGPT had to say about it. Am I out of a job yet? Thankfully, no. What I found was that it gave me a few references to support some of the arguments that I was trying to make. And lo and behold, actually, I knew some of the people, some of the authors for the bibliographic references that it gave to me as an output. I was delighted. I mean, the papers were fantastic. They were well-respected journals and conferences where I've published myself. The years were correct. Everything was correct, right? I look at those references and I was like, I should read this paper. This is absolutely the right thing, right? And then, I go and hunt the paper, as one does on Google. Turns out that the paper does not exist. Right? So the paper does not exist, and it made a very, very compelling case for that paper because the title was exactly what you would want to read, right? It's like reading your mind. The people are exactly the kind of people who would write that paper, right? And the journals and the conferences are the places where those papers would be published, except that the paper does not exist.
So it just made it up?
It made up the paper. So it hallucinated.
It picked up like what you wanted.
It picked up my deepest desires.
And made it up. No, but I'm so happy.
My deepest desire is how do humans and machines work together well in a collective setting, and it figured that out and gave me a paper.
But I'm so glad you brought it up. So students in the audience, hear that the next time you use ChatGPT and submit it for an assignment or an exam, it can make up things which just do not exist.
Which just do not exist.
And you do not want to be in that position.
You certainly do not. And well, anyways, I mean, I guess the point that I'm trying to make there is, it can be viewed as a negative, right? Which it is. That it's a great sign that you should obviously go and make sure that you are vetting your references before, putting them in, and the other things that come with an academic code of honor. The positive that I took away from it was that I actually reached out to those authors, the supposed authors of that supposed paper, who are friends of mine who I know in the field. And I said, hey, here's a great paper idea for you. I think you should write this paper.
That's interesting.
So it is, I think it's always good to look at the positives and the negatives, right? The negative is obviously hallucination, which is, it's a problem. Make sure you check your work. The positive is that it can be an interesting, divergent thinking, ideation, thought partner, right? And so always, the macro point is do not abdicate your critical thinking skills. That is what distinguishes us. That is what makes us human. That is what will, at least for a little bit more, ensure that we have a place in the world.
That's a good thought for some time. Jodie, what are your thoughts?
Thank you. I don't know if you guys know something about Abhishek. He is the founder of the Montreal AI Ethics Institute. So if you want to know more about AI ethics, follow him and his institute. Apart from the Montreal AI Ethics Institute, there was a great work also done by Berkman Klein Center on principled AI intelligence. And in there, they included 8 main areas of ethics. And they determine those areas based on work that is done by many, many institutes and countries on AI principles that we as humanity need to follow. And those principles include 8 of them. The privacy, as Tracey started to mention, accountability. Who is accountable if something goes wrong? Robots or humans or who else? Like within humans, is it the manufacturer, the driver? There are various humans that get involved in manufacturing of something. Bias and fairness related issues, the bias related issues, right? Safety and security of AI. Transparency and explainability related to AI. Human control of technology. Are we going to keep, I think Abhishek started to mention, are we going to continue to have that control on technology? Our AI is going to become so great that in front of it, we are just like gorillas. As humans are treating gorillas, that we may become in front of AGI. Actually, there's a good book on AGI by Nick Bostrom. It's called Superintelligence. That's worth for you guys to read. Other areas of ethics are professional responsibility and promotion of human values. But the question with human values is like, what are human values? The go-to place generally is the UN human rights area. But there are significant differences in different countries as to what they consider human values. So that's on that. But I had some more points, Dr. Joshi, about what organizations should do to promote ethics.
Yeah, go ahead. We're combining the questions here.
So again, as I shared with you guys, a system that organizations need to follow. And similarly, even for AI ethics, they need to kind of consider like a framework. So there are 8 layers in that framework. Think about an organization. It starts with boards and CEO at the top. And they determine the culture of the organization. So first, tone at the top. So that's the first layer. Second, the policy layer. Do you have AI ethics policy? Do you have an AI ethics board? As you know, Facebook has an AI ethics board. Microsoft has an Ether committee. Do you have something that's going to administrate that? Third is embedding AI ethics down into the organization through policies and procedures in the detailed processes. Fourth, you look at your people. Who are you hiring? Are they ethical? In the interview process, do you ask those questions? Hiring of those people, positioning those people in the right titles, and then training them on AI ethics. All that is part of the system. Fifth would be conducting regular audits of whether your company is actually following AI ethics that it's subscribing to as part of the AI ethics policy. Seventh is around consequences and accountability. You got to have carrots and sticks attached to it. Otherwise, whatever you're saying has no value. Eighth is about engaging stakeholders. You need to go broader. You can't just be saying, okay, I'm a bank and I'm only going to deal with the bank-related issues. How about the society-related issues? If AI takes over the world and we are like gorillas in front of it, your bank, which has billions or trillions of dollars, had some responsibility. You've been using AI as well. So are you going to have some resources available for society to deal with that? It's some question that your board needs to ask. And last but not the least is evolution. AI is going to evolve, and so your ethics practices need to evolve as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Jodie. Rahul, I know with identity and access management, your areas of expertise, you probably see a lot of ethical issues firsthand and also devise strategies for addressing those. So can you give us some maybe practical insights into that?
First, I'd like to say that, Jodie, that was an extensive list, and you covered off a lot of great topics. So that was fantastic. So if I may just provide maybe a product perspective to ethics and what that really means. So when we say that something is ethical, what is it that we are really substantiating? That one thing, that entity is honest. It does not differentiate or discriminate. It does not copyright. It does not cheat, right? It is fair in its assessment. So those same principles need to be applied across the AI lifecycle. Right from the genesis of AI, when you're starting to formulate these algorithms, which are going to make a decision for you in the near future, you got to make sure that those values are embedded as and when you build out those algorithms, right? And that comes through data to a certain degree. That comes through some of the frameworks that Jodie spoke about. And then there are companies that produce AI, and then there are companies that use AI, right? So you got to make sure that that value chain is transferred as and when that AI algorithms get shipped into a product, and that product is then utilized by companies. And you got to make sure that those values are followed both at the people level. So you got to make sure people are ethical. They know what the intended purpose of the AI is, and they're not using it for nefarious purposes. And also at the technology level. Sometimes technologies have vulnerabilities for people to get in and change the dimensions of how an algorithm is supposed to work, or dilute the data so that the AI spits out a different result. So you got to make sure that you have solid controls in place so that those values, the ethical values, are always safeguarded.
Thank you, Rahul. Manon?
A lot of ground has been covered by my colleague, and I'm going to follow in your footstep and give you a true example to make you think about ethics and real life implication. How many people in the room are familiar with the Theranos case? Elizabeth Holmes. Okay, let me tell you the story very quickly. Dropout of Stanford, 19 years old, had the dream with a small drop of blood to really be able to do 200 tests. Lipid profile, your kidney profile, your liver enzymes. If you're a scientist, you'll say from the get-go, that's not going to work because all of these labs oftentimes are processed differently or stored or need to have a reactant in the tube. So when you go for a blood test, oftentimes you'll have different tubes. Purple, blue, green, maroon. There's a reason for that. There's a liquid inside. So she had that philosophy. And for those who are not familiar with the case, she was engaging people in that idea that came from an idea to an MVP to a pre-seed, a seed, Series A, Series B, Series C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Her company was worth $9 billion and she raised $40 million. No evidence. She forged the evidence. To your point, she was putting data which was not identifying the right conditions. She got to be in Walgreens in the US, which is like Shoppers Here or Pharmaprix. She got to be embraced by other people that put money, big organizations, which you know, and basically it was forgery. Fast forward, she is out of the picture. She has been sentenced, her and her partner, but the people were not listening to the whistleblower. So my comment to you, if you see something that's wrong, most companies now are having safeguards for whistleblowers. You have to say something. You see something, you say something. If something doesn't make sense, if there's too much secrecy about processes, not enough communication between teams, there's a red flag. Because within an organization, the tone is set from the top, but you should be able to collaborate to piggyback on one another because you have different skill sets. So if everybody is really in silos and don't speak to one another and work together on the technology, there's a little bit of something to be concerned. As an investor, I'm also an investor, was there a due deal that was done? No due diligence was done. They were all piggybacking on having those names coming in and saying, oh, if so-and-so has came in, probably they've done their due diligence. They have a bigger team than mine. Cyber is done. IT is done. Scientific credentials. So it's just go and look a little bit further and ask for the investment memo. I would say go one step further. AI is here to help us, but in reality, we all have judgment. We have emotions, but we also have gut feelings, which the machine don't have. So your collective knowledge as a group is going to go a long way. But I would say raise a hand, raise a flag if you see something.
If I may just do like a follow-up question on that, Manon. The role of whistleblowers is large. We talk about, whistleblowers played a key role in uncovering some financial frauds, ethical frauds we've had in the tax context. Tax whistleblowing is huge. All of those Panama Papers, Paradise Papers are examples of that. Very rarely do we think about whistleblowing in the context of a solution to address ethical problems related to AI. So you bring that up, and I find that a very interesting insight. So do you think it's safe to say that in the years to come, maybe whistleblowing programs directed towards AI could become the norm, as we have seen in things like tax or accounting or financial reporting? Do you think that's something in the years to come we'll see in organizations?
I think it's highly possible. And just to piggyback on the data, pharma companies rely heavily on data sets. We rely heavily also on published evidence because you want to piggyback from one set of evidence and always bring medicine one step further. With ChatGPT, I'm completely puzzled, but also very cautious about what's going on, because when you do your literature review, of course you look at the element that's going to support your evidence. We can't cut corners, because to your example, people are going to be misled. If you don't have the right set of data, you're presenting a dossier to FDA. How how kosher, how strong and sturdy is that going to be if we rely on tools which have curated and uncurated data sets for the use of human beings and treatments? So I think this is one aspect. This is healthcare. It could be automotive. It could be aerospace. I think we have to think twice. I think we have to put guardrails. And there's been an article yesterday, and I want to pass the mic to you because I think you're the best expert to talk about that. Have you read the article in La Presse and in different paper about the fact that Elon Musk and 1,000 people wants to say, hey guys, hold it for 6 months. We need to have some safeguards and need to know what's going on.
If I may just block that, park that question, because we will move on to ChatGPT, not just as yet. I think, Rahul, you had a thought on
I just
the
want the
whistleblowing.
students to take away one thing. Dashboarding and reporting and metrics are probably the most boring thing you will come across when you go about, doing your day-to-day business.
Sorry, Rahul, can you explain to them what that means? I'm not sure they necessarily understand those two terms.
Right. So when you go about in the workforce, one of the most exciting things that you will do is produce metrics and dashboards on a periodic basis, just to showcase your performance or showcase how well your business unit is doing or showcase how well your idea is doing. When we speak about AI and ethics, and we spoke about guardrails, it is really important to put in place thresholds and indicators that will allow you to continuously monitor how effective your AI is and if it is deviating from its intended purpose. It's extremely important we do that. And you need to have smart people, and Jodie spoke about it, right? Technical people, maybe people in the center of excellence, who are going to continuously evaluate the outputs from this AI model. And you got to have a task force ready just in case you find out that the AI is deviating from the norm. Because AIs are capable of doing that because they are vulnerable as well, right? Both from a people and data perspective. So just something you take in mind. I think it will probably come up in the case computation, right? That metrics and as follow-ups are strong things to have.
Thank you. I think that was really insightful to hear from all of the panelists. Let's move on to an area where I personally am very much interested. That is data bias. I'm very interested in this notion of data bias. I think me, along with everybody else, we're reading in the news all the time about the data is biased, there's bias in the data, and often we think about what does that even mean? So I want to pose this question to a few of the panelists, and I want to ask them, what is data bias? And what are some of the issues around data bias and its impact on business decision making? Tracey, do you want to start with that?
Sure. So my background was statistics, and in statistics, there's the concept of population versus sample. We live in the big data era. There's no way that we study all the data in the world. So data bias usually comes in when you sample down the data with assumptions or the processes that's not exactly making the sample representative of the population. So one example I can give you is about the historical data bias. So the assumption here is what happened in the past will happen in the future. It's not a really unfair assumption, but you have to be careful with it. So for example, in credit risk, the assumption here is we can use historical data about credit card holders' behavior to decide how much credit limit we should give them. And I actually had a personal experience about it. I came to Canada as an adult and I needed my first credit card. I got one with $500 credit limit, but I had to deposit $600 in the bank as collateral and I could never use it. So it's really not a credit card. So working in the industry for many years, I know exactly why that happened in hindsight. The data probably was from several years back, so maybe the population back then was different, maybe not as many immigrants, or the immigrants' behavior have changed. But would you say it's really fair to penalize the new immigrants because the model didn't consider the population change over the years? So I'm not saying that's an easy question, but it's an important one.
For sure. And I mean, this concept of data bias, we probably come across in so many ways, but we don't really think about it that much. There is a research out of Michigan University, and that the paper is called Man versus Machine. And that paper does something on those lines where they take a machine learning model. So they partner up with a credit agency who does credit ratings for banks in the US. And they had a machine learning model that gave credit ratings on which loans were made. And then they had actual human people doing it. And the idea was to evaluate what role judgment plays. And if the debt made by the human underwriters was better versus the machine, and they found that judgment actually plays a very important role. And there were many people who were precluded from getting loan, and the social impact basically came into play there. So that's very interesting to know. Rahul, do you have insights on that?
Yeah, so in context of AI, data bias really means an anomaly in the data set, which is being fed to these AI models to make an opinion or formulate a decision, right? And the anomaly, it's an error, right, where certain attributes of the data are either overrated or overweighted or underrepresented, right? So let's take an example. So for example, you're launching a voice AI product to support customer complaints that you get on a daily basis. So people call in, and the AI on the other side is trying to interpret what the problems are. If your data did not accommodate for the different accents, the different age groups, the speed at which people speak, or speaking disabilities that people may have, these are realistic scenarios, then your voice AI data will not be very effective, right? And what does that do? That leads to customer dissatisfaction, right? Customer complaints, and in worst case, the business just losing the customer, right? And the customer trust, right? So that is the effect on management. That is the effect on the businesses when it comes to data bias. And what can businesses do about it? Again, it goes back to the genesis of developing an AI model and thoroughly evaluating it. That as and when you put this AI model into production, is it going to differentiate between people based on their ethnicity or based on the way they speak or their accent? Or is it going to be fair to all and has got capability to understand what people are saying? So that in a nutshell is data bias and some of the implications that organizations have to watch out for.
And I think there was a study by Stanford not too long ago, and that tested the algorithm that underlies the voice recognition in some of these Google Homes and Amazon Alexas. And the study found that the data that was used to train was overrepresentative of a certain group of people. As such, there were stats given that there was a 21% higher error rate in recognizing accents, dialects, tones from the overall general population at large. So this whole idea, I think, of data bias is not only very intriguing, is also something that we probably come across when we're calling in and we get frustrated because the Bell or the Rogers customer service just doesn't recognize when we say customer service, please, and we hang up. So I think it's very helpful to put that in perspective, that's what data bias is.
Yeah. I think they have bigger issues with customer support beyond just voice recognition errors. But I also want to share a positive example, I think, in terms of how organizations can fix data bias issues, because I think we of course love to lambast companies who are not doing well, but sometimes they do well, right? And I think we should look to those as exemplars for where, and look to those as exemplars to replicate in other scenarios as well. So, and this is a recent example. It's from Google, and what they did was to address the problem of non-representativeness in their Pixel phones' ability to capture the images of people with different skin tones. What ended up happening was that it was it relied on something, by the way, just for historical context, on something called the Shirley cards, which date back to many decades, coming from the early 1900s, where Shirley cards were used to calibrate color settings on film and cameras, and that served as a foundation all the way from analog to digital cameras, even on smartphone cameras, till Google realized that, hey, the images that it's capturing of people with darker skin tones, when the image is actually finally captured, it isn't representative of their real skin tone as they see it in the real world. And so what they did was not just address it from a data standpoint, but they actually went out, worked with someone who specialized in in creating a skin tone, a color palette for skin tones, and they created what's called the Monk skin tone, named after the researcher who was behind that effort, and they've incorporated it into the new Pixel phone, and it is now a competitive advantage for them to have a product out there that does better in terms of capturing images, representing people better. So there are ways to fix issues of bias. It doesn't only reside in data. It also resides in some of the design choices that go into, far upstream in the AI lifecycle, let's say, in the technology lifecycle even, where you have these foundational pieces of technology coming in from a historical perspective that have those baked in. And so you can even reimagine and do that. And I'll just add one more point, because I think it was interesting when Rahul was talking about, dashboarding and metrics, and all of that sounds so unsexy. Nobody wants to do it. Yeah, who loves, right?
The intent, but yeah.
Well, hey, no, it is when you build an actual business, that is the solid foundation upon which your business grows and scales, right? And by the way, I think Rahul gave some great examples around where it adds robustness, even addressing issues of bias in AI systems. I would also apply that to your ethical programs as well. Often, investments into AI ethics are experimental. They are a leap of faith from your executive team, from your senior leadership team, in allocating some resources to you to go out and explore this. But if you don't have metrics to demonstrate success, that funding can quickly be pulled away from you. So having KPIs, having OKRs, and all those things that y'all learn at school, apply that. It makes a significant difference. That's how you build competitive advantage in the workplace. And if you get smart and savvy about the unsexy things, trust me, that is your advantage in a workplace, because nobody wants to do that. And if you pick that mantle up and do it well, you've got a spot.
I think Tracey's got something.
Yeah, I think we all were talking about very similar themes about how to address some of the data biases, and I think that the validation portion of it is really important. So yeah, I think we're all talking about this.
Thank you so much. I think that was great insights. I do want to move on to the next question, because we do, a little bit short in time. So let's talk about what everybody has been talking about and comes up all the time, ChatGPT. So what steps... No, recently there has been a lot of discussion around ChatGPT. What do you think is the impact, or is it too early to know the true impact of ChatGPT and other language models on various professions and businesses? Can businesses be proactive in managing risks related to ChatGPT? And I opened that question with kind of the primer that it's a huge challenge for us in the academic fields, because plagiarism, assignments and whatnot could be easily done. So there are proactive steps being taken on the university level, where they're coming up with ways of detecting that, or they're trying to invest in programs which, may have a error rate, but still will catch something. So I know in our institution, we're being proactive, so are the other leading institutions of the world, but all of you come from very different backgrounds and very different professions. So it would be really helpful to know what you think are the applications. And I am starting with Jodie on this question.
So ChatGPT. I will tell you guys, I'm a ChatGPT super user. So I pay the $20 US, to get the ChatGPT Plus.
Sorry, what is the ChatGPT Plus versus the free one?
So with the Plus, there are two things that happen. When, sometimes the ChatGPT slows down, or too many users. So the first people who get access would be the ChatGPT Plus users.
Okay.
So that's one. And then secondly, when they offer new features, such as GPT-4 it would first go to the ChatGPT Plus users. So it's $20 per month investment for me, USD.
You can drop one of your video streaming services and get something far more entertaining.
What can ChatGPT do? ChatGPT, as you know, is a generative model. So it can generate anything. So it can generate text, images, audio, video. Well, sorry, not ChatGPT, generative models with different companies, like whether it's the DALL-E 2 or Midjourney. They can now generate everything, like text, images, audio, video, simulation, even 3D models. So with this, like, it's like a revolution is in place where you could actually, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that in McGill, but you can draft things, right? But if knowing what Abhishek said earlier, when you draft something, you have your first draft, for example, you cannot just go with that draft because ChatGPT also hallucinates, which means the draft that it may have given you may not be good information. So you actually have to review the information in detail and actually work with that, where you actually say to it that, oh no, this information is incorrect. Can you please look into that? And that, can you provide more information? If it's allowed, of course. If in a particular institution it's not allowed, so please don't do that because you're going to get caught, and that would not be too good. But it can draft things such as emails and presentations. Now ChatGPT also is, as you know, aligned with Microsoft. And Microsoft is going to be releasing Microsoft Copilot, which means all Microsoft products, including Word, PowerPoint presentations, spreadsheets, doing data analysis, any kind of data mining, all of that is going to happen through Microsoft Copilot. So which means that all these software that we used to learn separately, now ChatGPT type of products would incorporate all of that through Microsoft's products. But of course, there are risks. And risks relate to reliability issue. I'll give you an example. So I have a small consulting firm. So I started thinking, I'll prepare a chatbot using ChatGPT. And so I have a chatbot now. It's a digital psychologist. I think, Tracey, you use that. It provides very good information to whoever asks questions about, let's say, loneliness or mental health, etc. But the only problem is if you ask me whether my company would put its name behind the answers that ChatGPT is giving, and the answer is no, because reliability is still not there of the information that's coming through. Second, the issue is around disinformation. So if lots of people can prepare information using ChatGPT and some of that is misinformation, then they are putting that information on internet, a lot of disinformation can potentially come. Third, of course, is if more and more people start to use ChatGPT, where would those people who used to create that information, where would their jobs go? So jobs will get impacted. And even I don't know if you guys know this, these kind of products even can do taxation. So you put in all the numbers, it can actually give you what you need to do and what your final number would be. So it will start to impact accountant and business professionals that way as well.
Abhishek, it would be interesting to know, because I think Jodie did a great job about covering ChatGPT broadly. What professions or what organizations do you think are the most threatened at this point, or face the biggest risk? Threatened may be a stronger word.
It isn't. It isn't a strong word.
Okay.
I think it is absolutely the right word. All professions are being threatened, and a part of that comes from some of the opening remarks that I made around how, technology can still interrupt us.
Technology
you don't need AI.
interrupts.
You need a simple phone. So it's interesting when you look at the the democratizing capability of systems like ChatGPT, generative AI systems, where, I think when you asked me, when you asked the question, Preetika, that is it too early to talk about the impact that this is having on society? Let's just look at how rapidly ChatGPT rose to 1 million users. It was about 5 days. It went to 100 million users in 2 months. Any other app, historically, the fastest before that was TikTok. 9 months, right? I think what also people don't realize when we're talking about the magnitude of impact, and I really want to drive this point home. 9 months for TikTok, it had network effects going for it. It was a multiplayer scenario. You have your friends, you want to see your friends dance, you want to dance like your friends. It's true. Well, they're laughing because they know it's true.
Well, they're all on TikTok.
They're all doing it.
Pointing fingers.
They're like, I don't do it. ChatGPT, on the other hand, and I cannot stress this enough, ChatGPT, on the other hand, is a single-player game. You are hanging out with a text box. Yeah. I mean, think about this, right? I think far too many of you are far too young in this room to remember text interfaces were the only way to interact with a computer. Who would have thought that text interfaces would be back and that they would be the hottest thing in 2023, right? Text interfaces are back. It's a single-player interface. So magnitude of impact, 100 million users, less than 2 months, single-player game, and it's transforming everything. Jodie was talking about and again, now we go from ChatGPT to generative AI systems. We're talking about the ability to generate music, code. If you think you're good at writing Python code, you want a reality check, subscribe to ChatGPT Plus, pay the $20, drop a streaming service, and ask it to generate code for you. It does a remarkably good job, right? It can write prose. It can write marketing copy. It can generate images. So when we're talking about what professions it will have an impact on, it will have an impact on all professions, right? I think what we need to start thinking about now is what are the things that we are uniquely good at, right? And that also, by the way, is somewhat of an adversarial dynamic. It's a cat and mouse game, right? These systems are becoming more capable very, very quickly. So I think the dominant skill that you need to have in any profession, no matter what profession you're working in, is your ability to learn, your ability to adapt. That's what makes us human. That's what got us to where we are today. And I think that is what will continue to keep us relevant. For those who think, hey, I put in my 4, 5, 6, 10 years studying, and I know what I'm going to do for my career for the rest of my life, I think you're in for a bit of a shock, right? The productivity gains that are to be had from this, the cost savings that are to be had from this, the impact that this is going to have on the economy is just transformative, and we're only getting started.
Thank you to our distinguished panel of guests. It was such a pleasure hearing from all of you. We were so thrilled when we had such a wide representation. We have people who are in academics, people in life sciences, in technology, in accounting firms, and Boston Consulting. It's just a wide skill set. And what it does is it gives us this perspective of the same issue from different areas, different fields, different industries. So it was a pleasure hosting all of you. And thank you, everyone, for joining the session today. I do not want to be standing between a room full of people and a bar that's ready to go and foods that's ready to be eaten. So everybody has been kind enough by giving us our time. On this note, we will close the panel discussion. We thank all of the organizers for the event. We thank the Laidley Centre, David Laidley, everybody present today. Do not forget, we are still drawing after the networking reception. The panelists will be joining us in the networking reception. So if there are any questions that you still want to ask and you've not gotten to, please feel free to reach out to them. It's it's also a great opportunity for students to network with people from the industry. Thank you once again, and we will see the students tomorrow for the case competition. Thank you.